Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for tonight's webinar from Lifetime Adoption. We have some lovely guests here, and before we jump into our webinar tonight, I wanted to cover a few topics. My name is Kim King, and I'm one of the adoptive family coordinators here at Lifetime. I'll be co-hosting, but more so behind the scenes. And then Libby Dennison is our hostess for tonight, who will be pulling out some great information and a great story from our special guests this evening. But before we get started on our adoption story tonight, I wanted to make sure everyone is aware of how to get in touch with Lifetime. You can always call with any questions, 1-800-923-6784. That is an answer line, so that is a number you can always reach us at. If you are new to Lifetime and you'd rather just email us, you can always request information through the website at lifetimeadoption.com, or you can email ADOPT at lifetimeadoption.com. I also encourage you to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/open.adoption, and on Instagram. You can find us on Instagram under Lifetime Adoption Center. If you are an adoptive family, prospective adoptive parent, your first step is to fill out the application online at lifetimeadoption.com/apply, and that helps us begin exploration. If you are someone considering adoption for a child you are pregnant with or currently parenting, you would just call us at the 1-800 number, 1-800-923-6784, or initiate a chat on lifetimeadoption.com, or any number of other ways, email, texting, chatting, however you feel comfortable reaching out. That will be a first step. And whenever you reach out to us here at Lifetime, whether you are a prospective adoptive parent or looking into adoption for someone you are parenting or pregnant with, we are happy to hear from you and can help you make an informed decision. So with that, Libby, thank you so much for setting up our story tonight.
Oh, thanks, Kim. I've been looking forward to this. We've been planning this, I think, a couple months now, and I can't believe how fast this summer has just flown by. But it's been a little while, I think, since we had an adoption story webinar like this, so that also is really exciting, is to, you know, there's three sides to open adoption, and if you want to look at it simply, but usually the child doesn't start chiming in on their own adoption story until they're a lot older. And so really when, you know, primarily what Lifetime focuses on, because we work primarily with newborn adoptions, is the fact that there are essentially two main sides, especially at the start of an adoption story, which are the adoptive parents and the birth parents. And when we get to hear both those sides, I think that's when we can really understand the possibilities with open adoption, the blessings of open adoption, but also, you know, like we were all behind the scenes as we were preparing for tonight's webinar talking about that open adoption still comes with some labels that are rooted in fear or outdated stereotypes. And when you get to hear both sides, from adoptive mom to birth mother, I think it starts to break down where are those fears coming from, what questions do I have as I pursue my own open adoption, what will this look like for me. And so we're excited to have these guests, and they actually had reached out to me saying, we would love to share our story, how can we do that and when? So, so Lori is an adoptive mom and Liz is a birth mother. And they are joining us tonight to talk about how they came together through one little girl's life and her adoption. And I just want to say, as you hear their story tonight, we welcome your questions, we welcome your comments or responses, and you're welcome to type those in the questions box on your screen. But also, too, that as you're listening, you might be thinking, wow, I never even imagined that adoption could be like this. Or you might have maybe some additional questions that come up about your own personal heart for adoption or your readiness or different needs that you might have in your goals as you pursue adoption. And what I think is important to remember with every single adoption story that we present on webinars is how individual each adoption story is because of the unique people involved in each story. No two adoptions are the same. And as you listen tonight, you might, on one hand, be thinking, wow, I sure hope that my child's birth mother wants this kind of close connection. I sure hope for this in my future. And then you might end up with a birth mother who says, I think you guys are amazing. I don't want to keep in touch very often. And on the other hand, you might be listening to this thinking, well, that's nice for them, but I really hope that I end up with what looks maybe more like a closed adoption. And then you end up chosen by a birth mother who truly looking for just a sincere connection with you that's going to be ongoing from day one. And so it's important, I think, to just remember that you don't necessarily need to know today exactly how that's going to look, because as you will hear in Lori and Liz's story, it's really something that can evolve over time, that it's about getting to know one birth mother, one adoptive family, not 16 or a dozen or even 3. You know, that it's a personalized relationship. So as we talk tonight, we just hope that you will be inspired by this to ask more questions or to learn more, or to maybe just even help to spread the word that open adoption is a positive blessing for the people that are involved. So with that, Lori and Liz, I want to thank you for joining us tonight.
Hi. Thank you. Hi. Thanks. Oh. We're honored to be here tonight. Thank you.
They both sound similar, so you will all probably start to figure out who is who, as I have learned. But if you have any questions, you know, if one of them is saying something and you go, wait, who said that? What suggestion was that? That we can help you understand too along the way. These are pretty casual. So I think it's always good to start. In fact, maybe even we just start from that place where we were talking right before we launched tonight's webinar with what each of you thought open adoption or just adoption looked like before you knew each other. When you first came to it, let's start with Lori and then we'll go to Liz. What did you think adoption would look like, and maybe a short little snip about how you define it now that you have one?
This is Lori. My thought on adoption, you know, I didn't have a direct defined thought on what it would be. I have, my husband and I adopted 2 children previously through social services. That is considered an open adoption as well, because they know who we are and vice versa. But I mean, everything, it's different. It was defined to each situation. So I didn't really listen to the stigmas and the ideas that everyone else had. You know, I always wanted to have somewhat of an open adoption, a relationship on whatever level that meant with the birth mom. So it wasn't a defined thing for me, but I knew I didn't want it to be closed where I didn't know who they were and they didn't know who we were, because as we'll later discuss, I'm pretty open with Gage about her journey, her life. So that was something I knew from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Liz, how about you? I know, you know, a lot of people don't ever think about adoption until they're faced with an unplanned pregnancy or until they want to become parents and it's not happening. So how about you when you look back? I know it's been almost 5 years now that you were pregnant. What did adoption look like to you at the start?
Well, okay, this is Liz. At the start, I mean, I had no idea. It was just, like you say, I was faced with this unwanted pregnancy, and I didn't know exactly what an open adoption was, what a closed adoption was. I wasn't aware. I didn't know, like, you know, there was 2 sides to the journey, you know, and the way things are now, I can't imagine them being any other way. I really can't. No. I just can't.
I can't either.
So, Gosh, I don't even know if I'm answering your question.
I think you did. I think you did. Well, and that's really, I would say both sides, adoptive parents, birth mothers, they come from the side of, I've heard this is available and I'm not really sure, so let's learn more. And then that's where these stories kind of come in, is giving us examples of how to show what it's like today, because certainly adoption is a lot different today than even our cousins or relatives had even 2 decades, 3 decades, or 3 generations ago.
Right.
So when I always love this question, and we don't always get to it right away, but I figure we might as well jump right in the middle. I would love for you to just talk about how you, Liz, how you got the adoptive parent profiles and kind of weeded out and wound your way down to Derek and Lori's profile.
Well, you know, when I first had contacted Lifetime, they said, here's your next step. Your next step is to pick out a family. And that was the hardest thing. And like, how do I pick out a family? How do I pick out a family? And Lori's, I got to be honest, it just said I saw all the dogs and I thought, okay, she's a dog person, and I read more. Cheesecake. Favorite food's cheesecake, and that sold me. It just I wanted to know more.
Over cheesecake, of course.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was it.
Did that come up when you guys spoke for the first time? A lot of people always wonder, what will that first phone call be like? You know, do you guys even remember that at this point?
What was it like?
Did you talk about cheesecake that first time, or was that something that sort of unfolded later?
I'm sure we did. I mean,
yeah.
You know, because, you know, you connect. I mean, those first conversations are kind of awkward, and I don't remember our first conversation very well. No. I remember it being shorter, I believe, and I think that we decided to, because we, out of all the places, we are blessed, we live in the same city. So, yeah. So we decided to make a time to meet up, and I call that our awkward blind date, because, you know, as an adoptive mom, you're driving to this, we met at a restaurant, and then you're driving to this restaurant thinking, what do I say, how do I convey that I am the best candidate to be the mom of this child? And that is, I mean, that's really overwhelming. And so, I mean, I just remember I had to give it to God, and I had to just go, you know, I'm going to be me. And if she doesn't like me, then this wasn't meant to be. I just had to go in and just be me. And that worked, because I mean,
it was right away. It was instantaneously.
Instant that we connected, and I remember, you know, we just kind of jumped into it then too. I mean, we, you know, yeah, you're nervous, and we, you know, I think Liz, you even said, you know, I'm a bit nervous. I don't know how this goes. I'm like, I don't know how this goes either, but I guess we'll just fake it till we make it here, and we just kind of laughed, and as you'll probably hear through tonight, that's what we do a lot. We laugh together a lot, and I remember, I think really what broke down the first wall for us was, I asked, or somewhere along the way it came up, what do you see in this? And she told me that her biggest fear was being forgotten. And I said, well, I'm really glad that you said that, which is kind of an awkward thing to tell somebody that, but because I didn't know how to ever tell her my visions. And from the time that I signed in with Lifetime, I had a vision of, I wanted a collage of pictures in the nursery of the birth mom, of, you know, family pictures. I wanted those pictures in that child's room. And so to me that just answered her questions. You won't be forgotten, because you're part of her journey, and so it was important to embrace embrace that for us. So I think that kind of broke down that first wall for us.
It did.
Mm-hmm. I think that kind of conversation usually comes out, and I love that both of you could speak to that, because a lot of times we don't always get to talk about that when we have these kinds of stories. And I do think that there are going to be those difficult questions in the beginning, and Lifetime certainly can help with those, you know, if you're not really sure how to ask them. But a lot of times I do think they come out sort of organically, like you guys described, where you just sort of let the awkwardness happen, because I always think of it kind of like just, I mean, it's hard enough just to make new friends or fit in a new office, or that awkward part at church where they make you shake hands with everybody and you're thinking, we're just doing this because you said so, and there's not really a connection happening. But they're friendly and open. But the fact then, all of a sudden, there is always that little moment. And I saw something, I forget which author, it's a Christian author I follow on Facebook, but that you too moment where friends happen, you know, where suddenly it breaks this window into the wall of, okay, yeah, I was thinking that too, and I don't want you to be forgotten. And I certainly look at these photos. I wanted to make sure that we talked about even just the hospital experience, but I'm going to pull up these photos now. Oh, for those of you looking at the screen, I'll just pause there. That is Derek and Lori's family. And so, Lori, I would love even if you could speak briefly to the people in our audience who already have children, who might be thinking, you know, are there women who would want a family who already has children in the home? Because a lot of people get concerned that they're looking for 0 kids. And then Liz, even to talk about how that played into your decision or how you got to know them.
Yeah, I remember critiquing my profile and critiquing every aspect, trying to be that perfect candidate to be chosen. Is my house, you know, the picture is perfect enough? And you know, did we put the right pictures in? Do we portray the right side of us? And I really, as time went on, and it took a while, we were contracted for some time before we were blessed with Gage, but I just had to come to a part where this is who we are. And if a birth mom doesn't pick us because my house isn't big enough, then you're not the right one. If you don't pick me because I'm not the skinniest, prettiest one on the website, then I'm not the right one. If you don't pick us, you know, because we have other kids, then it's, again, you're not the right one. This is who we are. Take us or leave us. And this is what we have to offer. And that's kind of been, you know, I think the basis of our relationship is that, you know, we are who we are, and we accept each other 100% for who we are and what we bring to that table, the good, bad, and the ugly. We are who we are. And through that, we've built an amazing relationship out of, you know, mutual love and respect for one another.
Well, and that personality, just the little bit that we've been able to talk even this week, I would say that personality probably is mirrored in Liz, which is another thing you probably connected on, was we just are kind of take it or leave it people.
Yeah.
But Liz, did you have any sort of preconceived ideas like, well, I really want this baby to be the oldest or to have siblings? I mean, did that even weigh in, or was it just more like you said earlier, they stood out, I was reading about them, and it just was the right fit?
You know, the fact that there was other kids in the home, that didn't, I mean, at the time, now if you ask me, I'd say yes. I love the fact that she's got sisters, you know, but at the time it was like, well, you know, I just loved Lori and Derek. I did. I did. I didn't know McKenna and Cheyenne yet, and I just, you know, I just loved them. And now I'm really glad that Gagey has older sisters.
Yeah.
You know, I really am.
before we move off the topic of other kids in your home, Lori, we had a question come in earlier that just said, how do you manage in your own family the difference, because you mentioned you adopted your older two through social services, and then here you have this open private adoption with Gage.
Right.
How do you manage the differences in their stories? Because a lot of families would be tempted to say, well, since I already have two children with pretty closed adoptions, I do not want any, any type of difference. I want it to be similar across the board so that there's no questions like, why did they have that and I don't?
Sure. So, I am very open and very honest with my children. We lived off of this philosophy that we lie about the things that we're embarrassed about, and there's many things in this journey that we're not embarrassed about, and so we just share them, and they're just things that happen in life. And so my older kids, we got them when they were 4 and 6, so they are fully aware that they are adopted, and they as they get a little bit older, they forget a little bit of the trauma that they've been through. But we've had conversations that, after Liz has left the house, that, it's great to see her. And, and I can see that maybe my oldest is, went through a time where she was a little sad, and I invite her to talk about that. And I make it a safe opportunity to talk about it. Just like we parent, every child's needs are different, and this is no different. We talk about the fact that there's a reason why we don't have this close relationship with their birth mom. The two oldest ones share the same birth mom. Is that she's not safe, and that it would be difficult to share this kind of a relationship with her. I went as far as recently, my oldest one is now almost 13 next month, and I've said, if you want to meet her, I can contact her. I'm not comfortable with her coming to the house because we don't have that relationship with her, but we'll go to the park, we'll go have coffee, we'll go have that conversation if you want to meet her. And I let them have that control, if you will, because I already know the answer, and the answer is heavens no. No, they don't, because they don't have fond memories of their birth family, their birth mom. And so they realize that each one of those journeys are different, and we make it safe to talk about, but we do have a birth mom that blessed us with this baby. And so the girls absolutely love Liz as well. And in fact, Christmas is not Christmas unless we have her over as well. So that's kind of their whole thing too.
Wow.
So,
and then real quick, we had a couple questions. Just you had mentioned how you'd waited a little while, and I know later I want to get into a comment you made the other day about struggling with those God's timing questions. But
yeah.
How long did you and Derek wait before Gage was in your family, and did you have any upset or failed adoptions before that at all?
So when we started the journey with Lifetime, we had 0 kids at home, and we had always talked about we would adopt twice, and basically I think it took 4.5 years until Gage joined us. Excuse me. Because that wait was a long wait. I mean, for those of you that are waiting, it's a long wait. Those 4.5 years do not go by quickly. And so during that time frame, I have a good friend of mine who found out about these 2 girls, and basically we met them and we became an option for them. So while we did 2 adoptions at the same time, because we're crazy like that, and so that's kind of how that happened, is that we just pursued this other option as well at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Was there another part of that question? I apologize.
Well, and I remember in that time too that you guys had gone through, you'd had kind of a quick match opportunity come up.
Yes, that was it. Mm-hmm.
With a toddler, but it fell through.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that was a failed one.
There's so many different elements in every adoptive parent's story of, sometimes we know why they're waiting, other times we don't. And
right.
I think in hindsight now, I mean, I would say you're just, because I remember seeing you at webinars, and I remember working with you during those times,
Yes.
and you're much more relaxed talking about it now than I remember when you were waiting, you know, that it was
Sure.
just, it was so, so personal and such a personal challenge at times.
Yeah.
That you couldn't manipulate it to happen in a certain way, that it's probably a lot easier for you now to say, well, it just had, you know, I had to do the kind of take us or leave it because we can't be any different. Right. But I know at the time, even though that was the truth and a good focus, it didn't always feel like that.
No, it didn't. You know, I was always raised that no matter how, you know, you want something, you work hard for it. And this was that one area where it didn't matter how hard I worked for it. I had no control. And I'm a little bit of a control freak, so that was difficult for me. And, you know, and it did take some time to come to that, this is who I am, because, you know, you just have to be at peace with when it's your time. And, you know, it's, and I used to hear that in webinars, that it's in God's timing. And I'll be honest, that phrase became, it used to bug me. It used to just kind of rub me the wrong way because it was, I didn't have control over it. And it was like, well, when is my time? I mean, here it is 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and when is it my time? And so that was difficult, and I kind of, but it happens when it's supposed to happen. And it's funny because I can tell you now, I know why it took that long is because, you know, we were meant to have Cheyenne and McKenna first. We love them dearly, but they have special needs. They have their challenges to raise. And had Gage come along first, even though I wanted a bigger family, that little girl is my world. And I would have been content with, we're done. And I know that God intended for us to have Cheyenne and McKenna first.
That's interesting to see it that way, and I've never heard someone put it quite like that, but certainly what a testament of faith just to see that no was not a never, but I have something else to happen first, or else you're not going to even get there. Sort of like you would have missed out on this, and they would have missed out on you if this had happened in your time.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's beautiful. I brought up this photo of each of you. It looks like holding baby Gage for probably first time or close to the first times.
First time.
And first time there. Yep.
Liz, what was it like for you? Maybe let's start with you to talk about how you decided how things would go at the hospital and who to include there and what that what you wanted it to be like and how you sort of made that happen.
Well, you know, I guess we always, you know, the whole time we wanted you to be there. We wanted Lori and Derek to be there. You know, that was my biggest thing. And I was just blessed with the fact that Lori's mom got to be there too. I was so happy.
Yeah, it was.
You know, but I always in my head planned Lori and Derek to be there, you know. And so,
yeah, I think you asked me, you said, do you want to be my coach? I'm like, I've never been through one of these before. I'm probably the worst coach ever. It was, yeah, I was like, I don't know that I'm going to be any good at this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do, a fun little story I have to share. So Liz was induced on the 19th, and Gage didn't join us until the 20th early. So it was a very long day. But to pass time before she was really uncomfortable, we were playing Uno and laughing and joking around, and I had the best hand to win. Like all these draw fours and reverses and skips, and I'm like, I can't make this woman who's in labor having a contraction currently draw four, ha ha ha. So I had all these cards in my hand. Yeah, it was
funny.
It was funny. She finally caught on, but
see, I love hearing that because I think that probably for some people it is more of an awkward time. Maybe they don't have the relationship that you had or the time, because you guys were matched. Let's see, you said you got matched in October and she was born in February. So you had 4 months to get to know each other.
Right.
So that's a little different than if you just heard about her that day or even a month before. If she wants you there in the hospital, you might not be playing cards with her. You might be in the waiting room thinking she's not comfortable to wear a nightgown in front of me.
Right.
Sure.
But
you know,
I love hearing that. It's such a fun memory for you guys, because I also think that coming from where I help women who are choosing adoption as birth mothers, sometimes they want that involvement, but they're sometimes concerned, will the adoptive parents want to be there? Will it be awkward for them? And knowing that it went down the way you wanted it to, Liz, because I know that Derek and Lori would have honored it if you said, well, I want to know you're there, but I need this to be private time.
Sure, absolutely. We would have honored that because it was about comfort. And I think on that level, though, at our first date, as I call it, you know, we made we made a pact that day that we were an open book. I made it very clear. She could ask me anything that she wanted. There was no topic off limits, because I wanted her to be 100% comfortable that we were the right family. And she did the same thing. So our whole motto through this pregnancy was, we're an open book. And it was everything in the beginning to benefit Gage. And but when you have that comfort level to truly ask people anything and everything, it's hard not to form a friendship and a relationship. And I mean, you know, I remember Liz would, you know, she would, you know, we would talk during the daytime, and she would be like, well, I woke up last night at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was thinking about how you would handle this. And I said, so from now on, if you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and you have a question or a concern or a thought, call me. I mean, it's 24 hours a day. And I remember there was one time she did. She called me at 3
I did. Yeah, I did too.
She's like, don't be mad. You told me I can call. And I go, nope. It was 3 o'clock in the morning, and she had a question that she had, and I answered it. But my whole answer was also, if you don't like the way I'm going to answer something, talk to me about it. I'm willing to see things from your side. And I was lucky enough that she always liked my answers. And she's like, okay, cool, good night. I'm like, okay, easy enough, love you, see you tomorrow. And it was, but we just had that, it was very open. There were good, bad, and ugly. We were very open. And like you said, it was all to benefit Gage. But when you do that, it creates this relationship where, you know, 4.5 years later, 5 years later, you know, sure, it still is to benefit Gage because she's very much in the picture, but it's you base a friendship on complete and total acceptance.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And going, I know that you guys had made a comment about, you know, we just had to go with our hearts and just call the fears out, ask the hard questions.
Yep.
But I would say too that what I'm hearing in your dynamic is that you also played well off each other. That you, even if you had a connection, but let's say Liz was a little bit more shy and kind of reserved, Lori being outgoing and very open probably wouldn't have pushed her, and the same with the other way, that you know, if Liz had a trust level in Lori, but she wasn't this kind of like, you know, let's just talk about and hash it all out kind of person, that she would have found a different way to communicate. But I think the bottom line is that it's okay to have those hard questions and to talk about them, because this is I mean, sometimes I almost feel like this is even more important than like finding a spouse. This is like, you know, an adoption of a child. It's a permanent thing.
Yeah.
That you have to be comfortable with each other, because the long run is going to happen eventually. And I would have hated to hear that, you know, well, Liz called us up and said, well, gosh, you know, she just cut me out, and we used to have all these great midnight conversations, and suddenly there's this misunderstanding of what went down, but that you
Right.
could actually talk about it beforehand.
Absolutely.
I wanted to bring up this photo of Derek at the hospital too, and ask, among all these girls in the family, and then obviously you two have a very special relationship. So where does Daddy Derek fit into this whole open adoption relationship?
You know, Derek loves being a dad. He loves having these girls. He absolutely is 100% behind me, supports this relationship we have. And he has a very similar relationship. I mean, obviously they don't talk about all the same things that we do, but they're very close. Wouldn't you say you're close?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And he welcomes her into our home, you know, the same. And, you know, or it's funny, I'll be shopping for something and I'll see something, I'm like, oh, that's so Liz. And he goes, you should probably get it then. And so, thank you very much. I think I will.
Yeah.
And,
thank you, Derek.
and you know, so he very much loves this relationship we have. He loves that. He loves to see how it benefits Gage, and so he supports it absolutely.
Can we talk a little bit, because I think what is
Oh, look at that baby.
sort of a unique. I know she's adorable.
Oh, yes.
You done good.
If you're just listening by phone, you might have to come online later and look how cute this little girl is. But can we talk a little bit, because I think what is special about your story is that a lot of people have this idea that, gosh, you know, they knew each other for 4 months, they were so open and candid during that match, and then so involved at the hospital, and you said even earlier that it was so amazing that you actually sort of live in the same area, so you would think that an ongoing relationship after the adoption takes place would look a certain way. But with you guys, it actually took a couple years before you got together again. So can we talk a little bit about how your open adoption has evolved since Gage was born? Maybe let's hear from Liz on you know, what she needed, because a lot of women who choose adoption, but also a lot of adoptive parents, they don't always know. It's very common, let me just say, it's very common for me to hear from women who choose adoption, well, I want a family to be open, but I'm not sure how I feel about it right away, while others may have a different idea. So what was that like for you? You gave birth. I mean, it's such an incredible time, but so bittersweet. So how did the adoption kind of start out and then evolve into where you are today?
Well, after I'd had Gage in the hospital, it was probably about, what, 3 years until we hooked up again. Oh, look at, I love that pic. Okay, sorry.
You're okay.
It was probably about 3 years until we hooked up again, and
because your initial thought was,
yeah, I was like, just let her go, let her find her little niche in this family, and
let her have her life. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I remember, because we had that conversation of what it looks like, and I remember at the hospital, I'm going to try not to tear up on this one.
Yeah. I already started, it's okay.
You know, I remember hugging her, and she said, this isn't goodbye, this is I'll see you later.
Yeah.
And so we kind of knew that, and we didn't know what see you later looked like, but she had always said, Liz and I worked a swing shift at the time, and so Liz and I, for those 4 months, spent more time together than Derek and I did.
Yeah, we did.
We'd go to lunch, and we would go, you know, I went to all the, you know, doctor's appointments and stuff, but she said, and on weekends we'd get everyone together, but she had said, I lived Gage's life. I've seen it. I've put my stamp of approval on it. Yeah. It's time for her to live it now.
Yeah.
And so she kind of let that, you know, we had that, yeah, and then you had your own time for a while, and.
But like I say, you know, it was like we didn't even miss a day, you know. We just
Did you see that one?
Oh, that's so cute.
That was her
little ladybug.
Little first birthday. Well, and
Yeah,
that's where the photo we started out with tonight, you guys, I'm going to bring it back up here. You had
okay.
told me this was actually from the first time when you did meet up
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
and she was about 3 here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is about
Really,
a little over a year
closeness
ago.
that you have, yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that the
Mhm.
closeness you have today, I mean, for all of you wondering, and it sounds like they're sitting next to each other, it's because they are. They're sitting together.
Yeah.
We are.
And
We are.
that doesn't
Yeah.
always happen, especially because, you know, not everybody lives near their child's birth mother, but also sometimes the relationship just doesn't go there. But it is a very special dynamic that you can sit on the couch together or in a room together. But that this was here, she was 3 years old, and just like you said, Liz, I love that you said that. It was like we saw each other 3 years later, and we didn't, nothing had changed from
No.
the relationship we started when I was pregnant.
No, I think we both, and I don't remember why we decided to get together. I don't remember if I emailed you or something. But I mean, we stayed in contact periodically through
Yeah.
Facebook and
Yeah.
private messages and checking in, Merry Christmas, or, you know, Happy Birthday, Gage, or whatever it was. I mean, so it wasn't like it was nothing for 3 years, but I hadn't seen her in 3 years. And
Right.
and I don't remember why we decided, and I think she was like, you know, I think I'm ready to see her. And I'm like, well, then come on out. And so I remember we opened the door, and she looked at me, and she goes, I'm going to cry. And I'm like, so am I. So then we both started crying, and I hugged her, and it was truly like there was no time passed. Oh, I love this picture.
I do too. Oh, that was such a fun day.
That was a fun day. That was
Yeah,
my
you said-
birthday. And
Oh, your birthday, okay.
it was my birthday, and I really wanted to go have a pedicure.
It was snowing. You forgot to tell her that. It was a snowstorm, the middle of a snowstorm. She wants to. Nothing's going to hold her back.
No, we're going for a pedicure. And Gage likes pedicures, and so it's if you can't see the picture, it's at a place here in town that it's a pretty nice place to go get pedicures, and so it's Gage, Liz, and I having pedicures and soaking it up, and there's a snowstorm outside. So.
There was a snowstorm.
But no, it's
we had
it's
a question
mostly
here.
that.
What does since this relationship is so open, and you said earlier that it's not Christmas unless Liz and her family are over. What does Gage call you, Liz? Does she have a special name for you? Does she just call you by name?
She does, yeah. She just calls me Liz.
Lizzie.
Lizzie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Lizzie.
Okay. Do you think it clicks with her at 4.5 years old, that there's a difference between the two of you, that there's something kind of special that makes her story different than maybe other kids in her age?
Yeah. I think so.
I think she gets it. I mean, she definitely gets it far more than I think what a typical 4.5-year-old will understand. But I've used the words adoption and Liz from the moment she was born. There are pictures of Liz and her big old pregnant belly in Gage's room still, and so we've had those conversations, and so she absolutely, I love those. She absolutely knows, I mean, the best that she can, that she knows that she came out of Liz's tummy, and that Liz loved her so much that she gave her to mommy and daddy. She'll tell random people sometimes a lot of our lives, and she'll say that she has 2 mommies. She has a birth mommy, Lizzie, and then she says, and then I have my mommy. And so she does, I think she does get it.
What I didn't want ever is for her to think that she wasn't loved, and that's why she was placed up for adoption. But she doesn't feel that way at all.
No.
I know that little girl does not feel that way. She knows she is so loved.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah.
And those of you looking at the screen, you can see this photo on the left is obviously Christmas time. So this was your first Christmas really to spend together?
Yes. I think so, yeah. Yeah, that was Christmas.
Yeah, that's last year. Yep. Christmas is kind of a big holiday because I'll tell you, Liz decided to, when we introduced Liz to our older kids in the beginning, we just said that this is a friend of mommy's that needs that we're just helping. And so we didn't tell them because, sure, you're kind of nervous that obviously Liz can change her mind. My kids with special needs and stuff, I didn't want to create anxiety in them. And so we kind of gave it some time. And I remember, I think we were talking about telling them over Christmas break because then they had several weeks to get used to this idea. I think that was her second birthday.
Look at her.
And so they, and I remember Liz said to me, oh, would you please record it? I would love to hear their response. And I said, well, why don't you just be there?
Yeah.
And then Liz and I got crafty and we decided, well, how are we going to tell them? And so after, it was Christmas Eve, and it was, and Liz says, well, I have a present for you. And so Liz and I went into the back bedroom, and she put this big blue bow that I still have on her belly. And Derek recorded it all, but we don't watch it because it makes me cry. And so we walked out, and Liz said, Merry Christmas, and there's a bow on her belly. And I remember Cheyenne going, huh?
I know. She didn't get it. I know. That was the. She's like, I thought I was getting a present.
and then I said, well, this baby that Lizzie has, she's going to give this baby to us, so this is your sister. And then they cried and they hugged her.
Yeah.
And so Christmas is kind of a big deal because that's when they got the best gift ever, a baby sister. And so so we kind of celebrate that every year. And we I make cheesecake since it's Liz's favorite. and we just celebrate and have fun.
Mm-hmm. I love that you could go back to that story because I do think that is a big concern, especially for people who already have children at home and they're trying to explain to them, okay, well, you know, there's still a chance, you know, that this woman could change her mind, but we're going to adopt this baby, and just keeping them in the loop as age appropriate, but also just even addressing that. If you don't yet have children, you probably still have that fear of how do I tell people, and you may not find that your opportunity to tell people that you are matched with a birth mother comes with a big bow wrapped around her belly, but I think even that you two could talk about that is just, okay, well, we don't want to put pressure on you because we also know that this is such a personal time, personal decision for you. But also Liz being able to say, but this is what I want to do, because a lot of women we help feel like that, and when you actually ask them all the time, are you sure, are you sure, are you sure, it starts to frustrate them because they're thinking, don't you take me at my word? I told you I wanted to do this.
Right.
But no. Liz, honestly though, even when you're sure you wanted to do that, I mean, there had to be that grieving time, or that just acknowledging that this is not something anyone ever expects to go through. What would you say to women maybe who are getting ready to deliver, or who have already placed a child, who might be thinking, does that grief ever turn back into the certainty or the joy that I had when I chose adoption to begin with? You know, how did you get over that time?
Well, you know, gosh, I am really not fit to answer that question, just because, like, I feel like maybe there's something wrong with me, because I never had that time where I really didn't, and so I can't.
But
I don't want to
answer in itself.
Question,
I mean, it was different for you. I don't think that means anything was wrong. I think that there probably are some women listening right now who would say, yeah, I can identify with that. You know, I wondered the same thing. I don't sit around crying all the time, that they actually feel at peace about it.
She did. I mean,
I didn't. I mean, it was just, it just what, and well,
you told me once we were in the doctor, it was the funniest thing. We walk into the doctor's office, and it was a new doctor, and of course, you know, she sits up on the table and I sit in the chair, and the doctor walks in and he kind of looks at me and she goes, oh, she's the mom, she can be here. I'm like,
that's funny.
And it was so funny. And it was, you know, she had mentioned she just felt like once we really matched and connected, you felt that you were a surrogate for us.
I did. And even the lady, her name was Diane. I don't know if she still works there or not, but she said to me, she was like, don't be surprised if you feel, you know, after this is all said and done, don't be surprised if you feel a certain grievance, a certain way, you know, and that never happened for me, ever.
Well, I think that speaks to what you kind of got that out, I would say, if I were to look kind of back at what we've even talked about tonight, that you were able to express earlier on. My fear is I will be forgotten. And I think had that insecurity resurfaced, you probably would have had a different way of processing after adoption than you did, compared to them just continuing to be open as they started. So I would say that that probably is evidence that that relationship meant something and it was positive towards helping you, you know, move forward after that.
True. You're absolutely right.
Well, I was thinking back too. I was looking at my notes from our chat earlier this week, and can you talk about? And then Lori can. I want her to kind of chime in on what it's like for her family. But you mentioned how you wanted to meet her family while you were matched, and since you all live sort of in the same area, can you talk about how you brought that up, or what it was like to meet the rest of Derek and Lori's family?
Well, it was, you know, Lori is just, she's always been an open book, you know, and I just said that I wanted it for some, you know, I
think it was the nieces that started it.
It was the nieces, and, you know, we found out Gagey was going to be a girl, and there was going to be another girl to this pack, and I knew there was 6 already.
Yeah, my sister has 3 daughters, and so and now I have 3. So there are 6 girls from 14 to 4.
Yeah, and so so I just wanted to, you know, take a peek. I'm nosy.
Yeah, and I don't remember, and again, you know, Liz never, you know, she was never pushy. She just kind of made comment. I wonder, you know, something about my nieces. I mean, I'm very close with my nieces, and it was something to the effect of the family. And I said, well, if you want to meet them, I'll make it happen. And she said, really? And I go, if you're serious, I'm never going to push that on you. But I go back to it. I wanted her to be 100% comfortable, and so so we live in Reno. My parents, but hi Mom, she's online today. My mom and
she popped up. Yep.
My mom and dad live in Winnemucca, and my sister, her husband, and those 3 beautiful girls live in Winnemucca, and my brother lives in Elko. And so I called them up and I said, I need y'all to drive to Lovelock, and we met at a pizza place and we all had pizza. So we kind of took over the pizza joint, and everyone drove, and it was to come meet Liz and her partner, and so yeah, it was a good time.
That was fun.
It was fun.
A lot of adoptive parents, I would say, but also I was working with a birth mother recently who said that her family was having a hard time understanding her deep bond that she feels with her child's adoptive parents, that true friendship. And then on the other side, a lot of times we hear from adoptive parents who say, my family doesn't understand why I include her in so many things. What is it like for each of you with the people in your own personal circles and your relationship for each other?
Do you want to go first?
No.
Okay.
Well, no.
That was a good list.
Okay.
You know, I go back to, there was some pretty strong opinions on what should happen, what shouldn't happen. And of course, my parents were very, you know, they're concerned. They don't want you to get hurt. And I remember my mom saying, you know, don't get too attached. And I said, how am I supposed to convey to Liz that I can love this baby as my own if I don't show that vulnerable side? And I remember telling my mom that it's too late. If Liz tells me today that she's changed her mind, my heart's broken. So I'm already in. And right. And it goes back to, you know, I don't remember if I said this or not already. If not, I've definitely thought it. I mean, society definitely has this stigma of what should be acceptable and what should the norm be. And the unfortunate thing is a lot of people that don't walk this adoption journey make that stigma. And I just had to follow my heart, and I had to do what was what we felt was right. And you know, even as far as, I mean, I don't know, we'll talk about that, but Liz's full name is Elizabeth, and Gage is named after her. It's Gage Elizabeth is her name. And I remember people going, do you really want to name her that? I'm like, absolutely. This is it from the get-go. And so my biggest thing is you just have to follow your heart and what you know is right. And my dad, God bless him, is he comes from that area. If it sounds too good to be true, it usually is, which is normally the correct way to think, usually. But you know, there were times that my dad was hesitant about this, and I think when you hear our story, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around it and go, yeah, are you guys really that close? And when you see us together, it's my dad, you know, he gave us the ultimate compliment. I think it was 4th of July this year, after Liz had gone home, and he just sat back and goes, watching what you two have created is nothing short of amazing, and is so powerful for your kids and for one another. He goes, my hats are off to you guys, because that is the real deal. And it's true. I mean, that's just how we are. I mean, it started out to benefit Gage, and it's turned into an extended family. I mean, Liz is part of our family, and I think was something that was important, you know, to look at on whatever level of comfort you're in. She's part of Gage's journey. She's part of who Gage is, and I can't imagine not accepting that and not allowing that. And it's really fun to see and watch the similarities, because, you know, DNA, you know, that's a powerful thing. It cracks me up how many times Gage will do something. I'm like, I don't know if she gets this, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's from you. And it's so
like this photo here. You can tell the story of how this photo just happened this week here, the super photo.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the one on the right when they're both in superheroes. So this cracks me up. We had sound check Monday, Tuesday?
Yeah, Monday.
And and it happened to be my day off, and so I had run to the store and run to the grocery store, and Costco has Halloween costumes out. And Gage is not a princess. She will tell you she's not a princess. And she chose to be Superman for Halloween, but insists on trying it out and flying around the house, which means I'll have to go buy another Halloween costume by the time it gets here. So, but anyway, I had put her down for a late nap, excuse me, and so Gage was sleeping our whole time, and Liz came from work. Now, I have not told Liz that her new fad thing is superheroes. So Liz shows up in her smock, and if you can see it, it's Superman on her smock. And it cracks me up because it's unplanned. There's just too many things. It's not just always a coincidence. The things that they're into, the things that they like. You know, most parents have to, you know, teach their little ones to be gentle with animals. And we got really lucky. Gage never went through that phase. She was always so incredibly sweet with every animal we've had. And Liz is an animal fanatic, and Is it safe to say you like dogs more than you like people?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say so. Absolutely.
and so I mean, it's funny to see that, because I mean, yes, we have animals, but it's like it's just part of who she is. She has this incredible love for animals, and the other one, tomatoes. I hate to go on about that.
Tomatoes, yes.
That first time
So funny.
It is hilarious. I would, I buy those little things of cherry tomatoes, and Gage will take the whole thing and go sit and watch TV and eat it like popcorn. And I always have a thing on the counter just for her, because she will eat them constantly. Our very first time we got back together, I'm cooking dinner, and Liz finally goes, "Oh, it's killing me. Can I have some of those tomatoes?" And I said, "Yeah." And Liz's partner happened to walk by and he goes, "You always eat that stuff like candy." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that's where this comes from."
Oh, funny.
It is.
And that must mean a lot. That must mean a lot for Gage, because I know that she's getting to be that age where probably she can, children naturally go through a phase of putting like things together. And so for her to be able to say, "I like this, and so does she," just kind of having that connection of just knowing her identity. But also, Liz, I just keep thinking about what you said a few moments ago when you were talking about that it wasn't really about grieving, that all you ever wanted was for her to connect with and bond with this family that you were giving to her, that you wanted her to have this life that she's in. How do you guys, since you are so close now, and really when I think about it, it's only been since last summertime that you guys have really kind of just blown your open adoption out of the water, and it's just interwoven in so many different areas. How do you keep your roles still kind of defined so that, as Gage grows up, that she's not confused? I know that you talked earlier, I think Lori had mentioned, this is my mommy, this is my Lizzie. But how do you kind of work that out even at this point? Because a lot of people would think, well, doesn't that ever get confusing for the child?
Yeah. I don't think it ever was for her.
No, I mean, there are times that she'll, I think that, when we're, like if Liz is over for a barbecue and Gage wants a soda or something, Liz is really good about saying, well, you better ask your mama if you can have that.
Yeah.
Or no, there is, I don't feel like there is ever a power struggle between us. It's a very unspoken thing. But at the same time, if Liz decides that Gage can have, whatever, I mean, she's good she hears me. If I say, Gage, you need to finish your dinner before you can have dessert, Liz is very, and she would easily say, well, Mama says you got to finish your dinner, so why don't I help you? But she does that with all of the kids. It's not like she just pinpoints just to Gage. It's, hey girls, Mama said finish your dinner, come on, or whatever. And so it's kind of like you become the birth mom for all of them, really.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like, I do that with even my nephews or with my friends' children, that when I've heard the parents say one thing, that I will be like, come on now, non-parent person makes it almost like fun, like, okay, yeah, I can do this. Mom's not just nagging me to finish my dinner. But other times that you also are the backup too, like, no, I heard her say that to you, now you better do that. That really, it's not that different than having an aunt or a close friend or even another mom of a playmate of your child, just all sort of be this partnered group of raising these children.
It's
but that it doesn't sound like co-parenting to me. I think there's a significant difference between that and co-parenting, which would be kind of the fear or the stereotype around open adoption, and that's not at all what I hear here. That this is not like joint custody. We have a very special relationship, like extended family, like you said earlier. I think that is the best way to put if you have to put a label on it, I would say that extended family That's such a beautiful way to model it, because you don't, children don't grow up confused, well, we spend a lot of time at grandma's house, does that mean she's my mommy?
Right, right.
They know. And just so you know, too, we had a super sweet comment from your mom, Lori, who I know is listening, that says, I'm so proud of both of them, and I hope she doesn't mind that I'm reading this, but I just think it speaks to the relationship we've been hearing tonight, and just says our whole family adores Liz and what she brings to our family. And it's just beautiful, I think, to imagine that this one little girl's life could bring so many people together in love, and to just create just such a positive model, even for people who are just onlookers.
Right. Yeah, we have. Thanks, Mom. By the way, leave it to her to make us tear up.
I know. Thanks, Da.
But it's true. I mean, this little girl really has brought people together and has created, an extended family. I mean, it's on every level.
Gosh, she continued, and I just wanted to share this because I do think this is so fitting to the possibilities that open adoption offers a child. But she just says, I would like to add that Gage understands as much as a 4-year-old can, but the adoption will never be a surprise, just a deepened understanding.
Yeah. Right. Very much so.
I think that's perfect. That's perfect. This has been great. I know we've kind of run over here. If any of you who are listening, I mean, you've all been a little quiet this second half here, so I think that they've been soaking it in. If any of you have a question as we wrap up tonight, now is the time to type that in. If you wanted to ask either of these women a question from their own perspective with open adoption. While I'm waiting to see if anybody has any loose ends to tie up, I just was going to ask you guys as we wrap up, if you were to answer this for a stranger or to help someone else understand open adoption, how would you answer what open adoption means to you, or what the other means to you?
What adoption means, or what the other person means?
Like what, Lori, what does Liz mean to you? Liz, what does Lori mean to you? What does open adoption mean to you? How would you, if someone was to say that to you and you were standing in the grocery store trying to help somebody understand what open adoption is, what it means to you, how would you kind of define that in a nutshell?
Wow, you really want us to cry tonight.
I
know. I'll answer first. I can't even begin to put into words, excuse me, what Liz means to me. Obviously your spouse is your best friend, but Liz through this has become my best friend. I'd rather go to a movie or to a pedicure with Liz than anybody else. Sorry, Da. Liz gave me the best gift that anybody could ever give me. All I ever wanted, all I ever wanted was a baby. And she gave me the love of my life. I mean, that little girl is, I wish y'all could meet her. This kid cracks me up. She is a fun kid. She completed our family. She gave me a joy and a love that I didn't know existed, and she selflessly gave this to me. And so when people say, how can I bring her into when people say, open adoption, why would you bring her to your home? Yeah. Look what she gave me. Yeah. Look what she has done for me, for my family, for my mom, for my nieces. I mean, my nieces absolutely love Lizzie too, because they love their baby Gage. And so it's, how can I not embrace her? Look what she gave me. Okay, my turn. Whew,
Yeah.
you're up.
Well, I was, let's see, I want to say it was probably about a year before we hooked back up. And I was with my brother, and we were shopping over at the shopping mall near the Legends shopping mall.
Okay.
And I said to him, I said, you know, Reno is just too small. I know I'm going to run into Lori someday.
Yeah.
And when I do, it's just going to be tears and hugging. You know, it's not going to be like a, oh gosh, oh no.
Yeah.
And so I hope I answer that question correctly. I mean,
Put into words.
It's hard to put into words. It really is.
It's just, yeah, it's, you know, and I think that I'm quiet and modest about it, but I'm gonna throw you into the bus a little bit as well. You know, being that this was an unwanted pregnancy, you know, this was something that weighed very heavily on her mind and her heart on what to do with Gage, and she you know, and had a great peace in determining that Derek and I were the perfect parents, which, by the way, is a very humbling thing to have someone say you're the perfect parents. And so, you know, for her, I mean, you've said in the past that this was, I always say she gave me the best gift in the world, and she says that, no, you did me the favor. And that's hard for me to wrap my head around, but I respect that that's how she feels. So it's like we both fulfilled needs in one another that normally we couldn't fulfill, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's a perfect way to define it. In fact, the other night I was speaking with a woman who's thinking about adoption. She's, you know, pretty far along in her pregnancy, but still has some time to think. But we had a great conversation, just talking about her concerns, her questions, her thought process, her situation, and at the end, because I think that sometimes there's a misunderstanding or an assumption that women don't really want to do adoption, but the reality is by the time the phone and start looking at families, and they're making these positive motions towards, this is the right plan for me and my baby, that it's important for adoptive parents to remember that you being there, being available to her, being ready for her is speaking volumes. Because before I hung up with this woman the other night, her question, I'd never, ever, ever heard a woman ask me this before, all this time. She said, so wait, just before we go, is this like guaranteed? And I said, oh my gosh, what do you mean? And she said, I just need to make sure that this is going to happen. I need this to happen for my baby. And
Wow.
I think when people understand that you are being there as much for her as she's being there for you, like you said, Lori, that you're both coming from these sides of we're not really sure what's on the other side, but you need each other. You can't have adoption without one side and the other side. That was a wonderful way to put it. So I'm grateful for both of you just being here tonight and to be vulnerable and funny and to just be open about what your experience has been like. The comments keep coming in just about how inspirational it was to hear you, or how much it helped them see that open adoption doesn't have to be a scary, nerve-wracking thing, that it could really actually be a relationship you enjoy. And not just something you feel like you have to fulfill, you know, that it's something you want.
Absolutely.
It's just beautiful to hear both of you share, and we really appreciate it. Is there anything either one of you want to add? You probably will hate me for asking that, but is there anything you want to add before we tie up?
No, I'm so glad that we were able to get together and do this, and because we've always said that we want to get our story out there.
Yeah, we do. We agree. We know that what we have is very unique, and we do want to share that, and this is possible. And I think, you know, I've said it before, but don't get caught up in what everybody else thinks the norm should be and what everyone else thinks your journey should be, this child's journey should be. It's really it's a group, it's a small group decision, and it's listen to your heart.
Yeah.
That's my final thought. Listen to your heart.
Yeah.
I'm trying to write that down. That was amazing.
I have moments of amazing.
You do.
I have brief moments of amazingness. But it's not, you know, it's not just, I hope that it didn't sound like a cliche or something you have to say. I mean,
No.
I really do believe that. It's I mean, to this day, I still have people who, you know, who meet me for the first time, and some people will say, you know, I have 3 adopted kids, and it's amazing how many people will say, do they know they're adopted? I'm like, absolutely they know, and in fact, I'm going to meet, you know, whoever, or we just had, you know, dinner with, you know, I mean, Liz comes to my house often, and I've been to her house, and, you know, we haven't done pedicure in a while. We're due.
I know, we're due. We're so due.
But you know, we try to get together, you know, often to keep that going. I think it's I think it's good for Gage to never feel like she is isn't loved.
Right, right.
I think it's important that I think it's amazing actually. The pedicure. I remember we sat at the pedicure and I said, "Did you ever in your million years think that this would be happening?" And
No.
she said, "No." And I think it's powerful for Liz to see that her decision that she made many years ago, that she still is proud of that decision. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that you could say that, because that's what we see, but we don't always get to hear it from the people we help. But that truly is that is the truth. Is when you have open adoption, it's not just about the immediate relief or soothing through those ups and downs of did I make the right decision, but that years later, and probably even 5 to 10 years later from here, as you have other milestones come up with Gage, that there will continue to be that sentiment of this relationship continues to affirm me that I did the right thing, that this was the best choice for all involved. And that, I know we didn't really touch on this, Lori, but I know that you, having had the failed adoption match before, you spoke to me before about just the feeling of this one was meant to be, this relationship with Liz, and that when you know, you know. But you can't always have that when you know feeling without panning out other opportunities. But still, that peace that you have with each other that comes out so candidly in your voices tonight, I would say that that's the potential of open adoption, that it's not a forced relationship, that it's something that just becomes unique like any personal relationship, that you could still have, those of you listening, you could still have a deep relationship with your child's adoptive parents or with your child's birth mother and not be this close. You could still find them very meaningful, while other times it could become something like you've heard tonight on this webinar. So that's whenever women call and they ask me, well, what is open adoption like? I usually start out by saying it's this whole area of gray zone that's just really something that can be customized and personalized to what works for the people involved. So that is what we're hearing tonight, is that this has developed into something that works for your families. And it's just, I think it's so helpful for breaking down some of those barriers. Even if those of you listening never have a story quite like theirs, you're going to have your own unique story with its own tearjerker moments, and those moments when you just laugh with a belly laugh. And I hope that this was helpful for those of you who are waiting to adopt, but also for those of you who are just starting to think about adoption, whether you're hoping to bring a child into your family or to look for adoptive parents for your child. If you have any questions after tonight's webinar, we are happy to help you, and you can always reach out to your coordinator at Lifetime if you're already working with someone, or you can always call us. If you're not sure who to talk to, you can call 1-800-923-6784 or visit lifetimeadoption.com for more information. So thank you both for joining us. And I know Kim was answering questions in the background here too, so that was great to see. And we just want to thank all of you for taking time to hang out with us for the full extent of our webinar this evening. It's just been great to have all your comments and feedback too.
Well, so, thanks for having us. We appreciate it. Happy to share our story.
Thank you, everyone.
Our pleasure. It was such an honor just to hear the story. So watch your emails for information about upcoming webinars, or go to adoptionwebinar.com. If you are not part of Lifetime's program and don't have access to your very own membership site, you can find a lot of adoption webinars and stories at adoptionwebinar.com. So we will meet with all of you again soon, and we hope you have a great evening and that you keep in touch and let us know how we can help. Take care, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.